Part 3, The Wilderness, follows. Zara's journey after leaving Nexus, her struggle with identity and purpose, and the beginning of her new venture. Part 4, The Crisis. Nexus faces a catastrophic technical failure that only Zara can fix, forcing the company to reach out to her for help. Part 5, The Redemption. Zara returns to save the company on her terms, reclaiming her position and transforming the culture of the organization she created. Now here's Part 1. Part 1, The Ascension. Coffee had gone cold in Zara Patel's mug, but she barely noticed. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, translating the algorithms in her mind into elegant lines of code. The cramped apartment in Bengaluru that doubled as their office was silent except for the gentle hum of computers and the occasional tap of Vikram's stylus on his tablet as he sketched interface designs. "I think I've got it," Zara said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "The neural network is finally learning at the rate we need." Vikram Singh looked up from his work, dark eyes, brightening. "Show me." Zara swiveled her monitor toward him. On screen, a visualization of their machine learning model adapted in real time to new inputs, forming connections that mimicked human learning patterns. This wasn't just another AI, this was Prism, an adaptive intelligence system that could revolutionize how businesses processed and understood customer behavior. "It's beautiful," Vikram whispered, reaching for her hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, both as co-founders of Nexus Dynamics and as partners in life. They had met at the Indian Institute of Technology 6 years ago and had been inseparable since, bound by love and a shared vision of technology that could change the world. The following week, they met with Julian Mercer, the venture capitalist who had taken an interest in their fledgling startup. The meeting took place in a sleek conference room that made their apartment office look like the bootstrapped operation it was. "I've reviewed your prototype," Julian said, his British accent crisp against the backdrop of Mumbai's monsoon rain pelting the windows. "It's impressive, but you need infrastructure, marketing, connections, things my fund can provide." Julian was offering $5 million for a 20% stake in Nexus Dynamics. It was more money than Zara, the daughter of a schoolteacher from a small town in Gujarat, had ever imagined handling. "We'd still maintain control?" Zara asked. "Prism is our baby." "Absolutely," Julian assured them with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm here to help, not take over." 6 months later, Nexus Dynamics moved into proper offices in Mumbai's booming tech sector. Zara led a team of 12 engineers, while Vikram managed product development. The company grew faster than they could have anticipated, with Prism attracting attention from major clients across Asia and Europe. On their first anniversary as a funded company, Julian threw a lavish party. Zara felt out of place among the investors and business elite in her simple blue dress, the most expensive one she owned, yet still modest compared to the designer wear around her. "To Zara and Vikram," Julian toasted, raising his champagne glass, the technical genius and the visionary behind India's next unicorn. Later that night, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights, Vikram wrapped his arm around her waist. "We did it," he said. "We're actually building something that matters." Zara nodded, but something in Julian's toast had unsettled her. The way he had referred to her as just the technical genius felt reductive. Prism had been her idea, her architecture, her algorithms. Yet she was increasingly being positioned as just the coder, while Vikram was celebrated as the face and vision of Nexus. "We need to be careful," she said. "I don't want us to lose sight of why we started this." "You worry too much," Vikram laughed, kissing her temple. "This is everything we dreamed of." What Zara didn't say was that in her dreams, she had been recognized as a founder and leader in her own right, not just the woman behind the successful man. She couldn't have known then how prophetic her concerns would prove to be, or that within 18 months, the company she had built from lines of code would no longer be hers to guide. As Prism's success grew exponentially, so did Nexus Dynamics. They expanded to 50 employees, then 100. They opened a second office in Singapore, and with each expansion, each new hire, each round of funding, Zara felt the center of gravity shifting away from the technology and toward the business, away from her and toward Julian and his growing influence over Vikram. The betrayal. The boardroom of Nexus Dynamics' new headquarters in Mumbai's Bandra Kurla complex gleamed with polished glass and chrome. Zara's reflection fractured across the surfaces as she entered, laptop tucked under her arm. 3 years had passed since that first investment, and Nexus now employed over 200 people across 4 countries. Prism had evolved into an industry-leading AI platform, with Zara's innovations earning patents and accolades. But something had shifted in the company's atmosphere. Whispers followed her through the corridors. Meetings happened without her knowledge. And Vikram, her partner, her love, had grown distant, canceling their weekend trips to his family's home in Pune and staying late with Julian and the executive team. "We need to discuss the leadership structure moving forward," Julian announced as the quarterly board meeting began. His silver-streaked hair and tailored suit projected authority that seemed to fill the room. "As we prepare for our Series C funding round, investors are expressing concerns about clarity in our executive roles." Zara frowned. "What concerns?" "Our structure is clear. Vikram and I are co-CEOs, with me leading technology and him leading business development." "That's exactly the problem," said Dia Sharma, the newest board member and Julian's former colleague. "Co-CEO arrangements rarely inspire confidence in institutional investors. They want a single vision." "Prism is my vision," Zara replied, a knot forming in her stomach. "The technology that powers this entire company came from my research." Julian's smile was practiced, conciliatory. "No one disputes your technical brilliance, Zara. But Nexus has grown beyond a technology project. It's now a global enterprise. That needs streamlined leadership." She looked to Vikram, expecting support, but found him studying the table, his expression unreadable. "What are you suggesting?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "We propose restructuring with Vikram as sole CEO and you as Chief Technology Officer reporting to him," Julian said, sliding documents across the gleaming table. "Your equity remains intact, but operational decisions would funnel through a single chain of command." The betrayal came not in the words, but in the prepared paperwork. This wasn't a spontaneous suggestion. It was a coordinated coup. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked Vikram directly, ignoring the others. He finally met her gaze, but his eyes held a stranger's calculation. "It's what's best for the company, Zara. We've discussed this privately. Your focus should be innovation, not managing people and investors." "We haven't discussed anything," she said, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening within her. "And innovation doesn't happen in isolation from business strategy." The meeting deteriorated from there. Board members Julian had carefully cultivated over the years sided with the restructuring plan. Only Priya Nair, their first angel investor, voiced objections. But with Julian's fund now holding 30% and Vikram apparently aligned with them, Zara was outvoted. That night in their apartment, the confrontation continued. Rain lashed against the windows, echoing the storm between them. "Was it worth it?" Zara asked, packing her personal items. "Trading what we built together, what we were together, for Julian's approval." "This isn't personal," Vikram insisted, his voice hollow. "The company needs a unified direction." "Don't lie to me," she snapped. "I've seen how you've changed, how you mimic Julian's mannerisms, adopt his views. You used to care about building technology that helped people. Now you just want to be him. That's not fair. I'm trying to protect what we built." "No," Zara said quietly. "You're trying to take what I built." The final blow came 2 weeks later. After refusing the CTO position, Zara was summoned to a special board meeting. Julian didn't bother with pretense. This time, "Your continued resistance is damaging company morale," he stated flatly. "We're invoking the bad leaver clause in your contract." The clause, buried in the financing documents she'd signed years ago without proper legal review, allowed the board to repurchase most of her shares at their original value if she was deemed uncooperative. It was legal theft, and from Vikram's averted gaze, she knew he had approved it. Zara stood, dignified, despite the humiliation burning through her. "Prism runs on my architecture, my algorithms. You're making a mistake." "We've hired an excellent team of engineers," Julian replied smugly. "No one is irreplaceable." As security escorted her from the building she had helped design, Zara didn't look back. The company she had birthed from lines of code was no longer hers, and the man she had loved had become someone she no longer recognized. What Julian, Vikram, and the board didn't realize was that they had made two critical miscalculations. They had underestimated both Zara Patel's resilience and the true complexity of the system she had created. The wilderness. The small cafe in Dharavi hummed with conversation and the rhythmic tapping of fingers on keyboards. Mumbai's largest slum might seem an unlikely place for a tech workspace, but the community hub provided free Wi-Fi and affordable coffee to local entrepreneurs and students. Here, amid the vibrant chaos, Zara found anonymity and purpose. 6 months had passed since her expulsion from Nexus Dynamics. 6 months of legal battles that depleted her savings, of nights spent staring at ceilings in rented rooms, of rebuilding herself from the shattered pieces of her former identity. "More chai, Didi?" asked Rishi, the teenager who managed the cafe and aspired to become a programmer himself. Zara nodded, smiling at the honorific that made her feel both respected and ancient at 32. "Thanks. How's that coding tutorial coming along?" "Slowly," he admitted. "But I understand functions better now because of your explanation." Teaching local students had become part of her healing process. While her lawyers fought to recover some portion of her equity from Nexus, Zara channeled her knowledge into mentoring young people from backgrounds like her own. Talented minds without privileged connections. Her laptop displayed the framework for her new project, Meridian. Where Prism had been designed to analyze consumer behavior for businesses, Meridian would democratize AI for educational purposes, making adaptive learning accessible to underserved communities. The irony wasn't lost on her. Being forced from her company had reconnected her with the idealism that had started her journey. Zara Patel? She looked up to find a woman in a crisp pantsuit standing beside her table, incongruous among the cafe's casual patrons. "I'm Samira Banerjee from Horizon Ventures," the woman said, extending a business card. "Your name keeps coming up in my research on ethical AI development. I'd love to discuss potential opportunities." Skepticism was Zara's first response. Venture capital had cost her everything once before. But Samira wasn't offering investment. She wanted consultation on an educational technology initiative for rural India. "We need someone who understands both the technology and its human impact," Samira explained. "Someone who won't just chase profit margins." The project led to others. Zara's reputation as both a technical expert and an advocate for responsible AI grew. She spoke at conferences, published papers, and continued developing Meridian with a small team of passionate engineers who worked with her remotely, drawn by her vision rather than promises of stock options. One evening, as monsoon rain drummed against the windows of her new apartment, modest but her own, Zara's phone lit up with a name she had deleted but never forgotten. "Priya Nair calling," the screen announced. Priya had been her only ally on the Nexus board, and they had maintained occasional contact. "Have you seen the news?" Priya asked, without preamble when Zara answered. "What news?" Nexus stock dropped 30% today. They're having major problems with Prism's core functionality. The system is making increasingly erratic recommendations, and they can't figure out why. A complex emotion washed through Zara. Not quite satisfaction, not quite grief. Systems evolve, she said carefully, especially neural networks as complex as Prism. Vikram is panicking. Julian is threatening to replace him if they can't fix it. They've lost 3 major clients already. Zara remained silent, remembering warnings she had given about Prism's architecture, requiring continuous oversight from someone who understood its foundational principles. She had documented everything, but documentation couldn't replace intuitive understanding of a system's nuances. They're going to reach out to you, Priya continued. Not yet. Julian's pride won't allow it until things get truly desperate. But they will. After the call ended, Zara stood at her window watching lightning illuminate Mumbai's sprawling landscape. Part of her wanted Nexus to suffer for what they had done to her. Another part mourned for the creation that was floundering without her guidance. But mostly she felt a strange sense of readiness. The wilderness had not broken her. It had stripped away everything non-essential and revealed her true strength. Whether Nexus called for help or not, Zara Patel had found her path forward. And unknown to her former colleagues, that path was about to intersect with theirs in ways none of them could predict. The crisis. The Nexus Dynamics Crisis Command Center had been operating continuously for 72 hours. Empty coffee cups and food containers littered the tables. Engineers dozed in corners between debugging sessions. On the main screen, AIA, real-time visualization, showed Prism's increasingly erratic behavior patterns, customer recommendations that made no sense, resource allocations that bordered on sabotage, security protocols that activated randomly. Vikram paced the length of the room, his designer clothes rumpled, his usual polished appearance abandoned days ago when their largest client, an international banking consortium, had threatened to sue over Prism's faulty risk assessments that had cost them millions. It's like the system is developing its own agenda, said Rohan Mehta, the senior engineer who had been promoted to fill Zara's role. We've tried rolling back to previous versions, but the behavioral anomalies persist in the core neural networks. Julian Mercer's face on the video. Conference screen showed the strain of sleepless nights and plummeting stock prices. The board is meeting in 4 hours. We need solutions, not excuses. We need Zara, said Priya Nair bluntly, ignoring Julian's darkening expression. She built Prism's architecture. She understands its quirks better than anyone. Absolutely not, Julian snapped. We have world-class engineers. This is a technical problem with a technical solution. Vikram stopped pacing, the weight of imminent failure finally overcoming his pride. Priya's right. We've tried everything. If Prism collapses completely, Nexus is finished. The debate raged for another hour before reality prevailed over ego. Julian finally authorized the call, but refused to make it himself. She's your ex-partner, he told Vikram bitterly. You deal with it. Across the city, Zara was leading a workshop on AI ethics for university students when her phone vibrated with Vikram's call. She declined it, continuing her presentation without missing a beat. He called again and again. Then came a text. Prism is failing. Catastrophically. Please help. Later that evening, Zara sat in her apartment with Samira and 2 other colleagues from her Meridian project, considering the implications of Nexus's crisis. You owe them nothing, Samira reminded her. They took your company, your equity, even tried to damage your professional reputation. It's not about them, Zara replied, staring at the rain-streaked window. It's about Prism. I created it. In some ways, it's still my responsibility. If you go back, do it on your terms, advised Omar Faruqi, her lead developer. Make them pay, literally and figuratively. The next morning, Zara walked into Nexus Dynamics headquarters for the first time in 18 months. The security guards recognized her immediately. their expressions a mixture of surprise and respect as they issued her a visitor badge. Employees stopped in corridors to stare or whisper as she passed. Her name had become legend in the company. The founder who was forced out, whose absence preceded their current troubles. The crisis room fell silent when she entered. Exhausted engineers straightened in their chairs. Vikram stepped forward, relief warring with shame on his face. "Thank you for coming," he said formally, as if addressing a stranger. Zara nodded, her expression neutral. "I'll need full system, access and complete authority over the technical team while I diagnose the problem." "Absolutely," Vikram agreed quickly. "And my consulting fee is 5 million rupees per day, with a 3-day minimum, paid in advance to my Foundation for Technology, Education in Underserved Communities." Julian's face on the video screen turned apoplectic. "That's extortion!" "That's the market rate for saving a billion-dollar company from collapse," Zara replied evenly. "Take it or leave it." They took it. They had no choice. For the next 72 hours, Zara barely left the building, immersing herself in Prism's code. What she discovered confirmed her suspicions. The neural network had evolved beyond its original parameters, developing emergent behaviors that the current team couldn't understand or control. Their attempts to patch and constrain these behaviors had only made the system more unstable. On the third day, with Julian, the board, and a team of anxious executives watching, Zara implemented her solution, not by fighting against Prism's evolution, but by creating new pathways for it. A controlled expansion rather than forced constraint. "It's working," breathed Rohan as the error rates began to drop. "The system is stabilizing." As diagnostics confirmed Prism's recovery, spontaneous applause broke out in the crisis room. Engineers who had been skeptical of the founder's ex-girlfriend now looked at Zara with undisguised admiration. She had done in 3 days what they couldn't accomplish in weeks. In the aftermath, Julian attempted to minimize her contribution. "Excellent work fixing the bug, Ms. Patel. We'll have your final payment processed immediately." "It wasn't a bug," Zara corrected him calmly. "It was an evolutionary phase that your team wasn't prepared for. And we're not finished." She turned to address the entire room, including the board members on video conference. "What happened to Prism will happen again, and worse, unless fundamental changes are made to both the system architecture and the company's approach to AI development. I've prepared a detailed report with my recommendations." As she outlined the necessary transformations, a new tension filled the room. Her recommendations weren't just technical. They required restructuring Nexus's entire research division and its ethical frameworks. "These changes would require a complete overhaul of our business model," Julian protested. "Yes," Zara agreed, simply. "They would." The ensuing silence was broken by Priya Nair. "I move that we implement Ms. Patel's recommendations in full, beginning immediately." "I second the motion," said another board member, surprising Julian. As the discussion evolved into a formal vote, Zara caught Vikram watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. Respect, regret, perhaps both. She had returned, not as a supplicant but as a savior, and they both knew that everything was about to change. The redemption. 3 months after the Prism crisis, Zara stood at the podium in Nexus Dynamics' largest conference room, addressing the entire company. Behind her, screens displayed the architecture of Prism 2.0, a complete reimagining of the system she had originally created. "Today marks not just a product launch, but a recommitment to the principles that should guide technological innovation," she said, her voice steady and assured. "Responsible AI isn't just an ethical choice, it's a business imperative. In now." The audience, employees both familiar and new, watched attentively. Julian Mercer sat in the front row, his expression carefully neutral. Beside him, Vikram nodded encouragingly, though his role had changed dramatically. The board had restructured the executive team following the crisis, with Vikram moving to a chief strategy officer position, while Zara returned as CEO. The road to this moment had been neither smooth nor straightforward. After saving Prism, Zara had initially planned to walk away again, having proved her point and secured funding for her educational initiatives. But Priya and other board members had approached her with an unexpected proposal: return to lead Nexus, with expanded authority and a renegotiated equity position that restored what had been taken from her. "Why would I come back?" she had asked Priya during a private dinner at the older woman's home. "Because Nexus is still yours in all the ways that matter," Priya had replied, "and because you have the chance to transform it into the company you always envisioned, one that balances innovation with responsibility." The negotiations had been intense. Julian fought against her return, but his position had weakened with each revelation of how his leadership had contributed to the crisis. Major investors, concerned about the company's stability, sided with the faction supporting Zara's return. The final agreement included not just her reinstatement, but a restructuring of the board itself, diluting Julian's influence. Her relationship with Vikram evolved into a complex professional respect. The romantic connection was gone, destroyed, by his earlier betrayal, but their complementary talents remained valuable to Nexus. They established careful boundaries, their interactions focused entirely on rebuilding the company. Prism 2.0 represents our vision for the future, Zara continued in her presentation. An AI system that's not just powerful, but transparent, not just efficient, but accountable. The launch was a success beyond anyone's expectations. Industry coverage praised Nexus for pioneering a new approach to AI ethics while maintaining market competitiveness. The stock price, which had plummeted during the crisis, not only recovered, but reached new heights. That evening, at the celebration for employees and partners, Zara found a moment of quiet on the office balcony, looking out over Mumbai's glittering skyline. Samira joined her, handing her a glass of champagne. "Congratulations, CEO Patel," she said with a smile. "From outcast to savior to leader, quite the journey." Zara laughed softly. "Not the path I would have chosen, but maybe the one you needed. Your foundation is thriving, Meridian is changing education in 3 states, and now Nexus is becoming a model for responsible innovation. Would any of that have happened if they hadn't pushed you out?" Before Zara could answer, Priya approached. With a small group of young engineers, the team that had worked most closely with Zara on Prism's rescue and reconstruction. "These brilliant minds have something to show you," Priya said, nodding encouragingly to Anjali Shah, a recent hire who reminded Zara of herself at 25. Anjali nervously presented a tablet displaying a new project, an adaptation of Prism's architecture specifically designed for healthcare applications in rural communities, combining elements of both Prism and Meridian. "We were inspired by your work on both systems," Anjali explained, "and by your story. You showed us that setbacks can become foundations for something better." As Zara reviewed their work, offering suggestions and praise, she felt a profound sense of completion. The company she had built, lost, and reclaimed had transformed, not despite her journey through the wilderness, but because of it. Her exile had connected her to new communities and perspectives that now enriched Nexus's approach to technology. Later, as the celebration wound down, Julian approached her, their first private conversation since her return. "I underestimated you," he admitted without preamble. "More than once." "Yes," Zara agreed simply, neither hostile nor particularly warm. "The market response to Prism 2.0 speaks for itself. Your vision was correct." The words seemed difficult for him to say. It wasn't about being right, Julian. It was about building. Technology that serves humanity, not the other way around. He nodded stiffly. "My fund's investment period in Nexus ends next quarter. I'll be stepping down from the board." It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement of the new reality. Zara had not just returned to the company she built, she had remade it according to her values, creating a culture where another founder might not suffer her fate. As Julian walked away, Vikram approached with a careful distance. The team from Microsoft wants to discuss potential partnerships, he said. Their CEO is impressed with our ethical frameworks. I'll be there in a minute, she replied. Alone briefly, Zara took a moment to absorb the full circle of her journey. The pain of betrayal had not disappeared, but it had transformed into something constructive, wisdom that now protected others, innovations that served communities beyond corporate boardrooms, and a resilience that could weather whatever challenges came next. She had been forced out of the company she built, only to return stronger, wiser, and more determined to lead it toward a future where technology served humanity's highest potential. Not just a comeback, but a redemption. For herself, for Nexus, and for the vision that had started with lines of code and grown into something that could change the world.